Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the Roria Conquest Brick Bronze Nuzlocke Guide. Now, before I get into the guide, there are a couple of things that have changed since the last time that I made a video. The first thing being this. When you load into the game, it will first ask you your name. Of course, I can't do something like this because LMAO is banned. Now, from the settings menu, there is actually a small time save you can make every run, and that's press get unstuck. The next thing that I want to mention is that once you go talk to your parents and go to the professor's lab, you can save before you talk to the professor so that you can reset every time to get a good starter. So the spot where you would save is right here before this wall. So you just go in here, press save. Now, I've noticed that the slash commands with slash save and slash unstuck recently haven't necessarily been working for me, so I recommend just going into here and pressing save to guarantee it. Because after you step over this line, you get put into a forced cutscene where it pulls you towards the professor. Now you can grab your starter, and then what you can do is go into this fight and check your Pokemon from here, rather than checking your Pokemon from your bag from your party. So you can just close this and press rejoin. Really quickly, instead of grabbing the Eevee in the city of Gym 1, what you can do is go to your PC here, and by just waiting long enough, eventually one of these images that is a Porygon will turn pink, and you can click on it to get a Porygon gift encounter at that city instead of the Eevee. And this is what it's going to look like. Now, a reminder, buy some repels. Since you have infinite money, this is like one of the most important things to buy here. Now that we've beaten the first gym, next thing we want to do is head down this path and talk to that guy over there, if you haven't already. He will give you the TM for cut, and you can interact with the cut tree. Now, a small correction from last time. When you spam click the tree before you've beaten the first gym, and if you don't have a cut on any of your Pokemon, it'll play a cutscene eventually, after enough clicks, where you get a Halloween Trevenant. The only thing is that even outside of Nuzlocke mode, you still don't get it. It just doesn't work anymore. Also, now that we're on Route 4, we have both Grass and Raid encounter. Now, if we look at my party right now, we see that I have a Luxio. And in this raid is also a Luxio. Now, I can't catch this Luxio because I already have a Luxio. So you would think that you would have to save before you take the encounter and then re-roll the encounter by rejoining. But you can actually take a different encounter from the grass, even if you get the same Pokemon you already have. So going up to here, we're going to go through this tunnel. And this should take us to Route 5. Also, now that you've beaten the first gym, you have the ability to run by pressing shift. Now we're going to walk past all of these trainers. This person you can just walk over here and you'll be fine. Same with this person. And another reminder that the level cap is now 20. So as we continue on this path, we will see that it splits into two. Over here is the graveyard where you can get an encounter. And over here is to the next city, Brimber City, where the next gym fight is. So first I'm going to fight these trainers, but the thing is that if you can, you want to delay this encounter up here. Now once you make it into this graveyard, once you go up this ramp here, you will start encountering Pokemon. And over there in the corner, there is a raid encounter. So in this old graveyard, if you want to get the grass encounter, you have the chance at getting a ghost type. However, if you don't have a flash fire Pokemon, you can go get this raid over here. And now we have access to this raid over here. Of course, there's also an item right here, and it's the spell thing. So if you need a flash fire Pokemon, you can take this encounter, and if not, you can just delay this encounter longer, or take a grass encounter. So we're going to go back down this way, and down the ramp, and to the right, so that we can go to Brimber City next. Past this trainer and through the grass, we're going to continue on. And through this tunnel is Brimber City. But before that, we have to fight the rival. So that rival fight is pretty easy. It is 3 low-level Pokemon that aren't evolved yet. So it's not something you have to worry about that much. You should be able to beat it as long as you have a good amount of health on your Pokemon. Now once we're here in Brimber City, we're going to run over to this campfire right here and grab a free charcoal. Now we're going to head on to the Route 6. It's important that you don't take your Route 6 encounter in case you need to grab a Durant. Now on this route, there are 3 spots where there's a little pile of dirt where you can interact with it and get a Durant. So what we're going to do is use a repel here, and we're going to walk through this grass. Now once we're in this area, you can grab this raid encounter here. It is basically a guaranteed fire type, but there's also this TM back here, which is pretty much useless. But these 2 little sand piles here are where you can encounter Durant. So obviously make sure you don't have any repel left, and then just tap on this, and then dig on it. Of course, it's not guaranteed, so you can always just save and rejoin after you take the encounter. Now we're going to continue on, going back this way, and through this other path. Now once we're past the trainers, we're just going to continue on through the grass, and there's a trainer here that you can skip. There's another pile where you can get another Durant, and if you go over here, there's a hidden staircase. That leads you to, I believe, a TM. Which is Double Team, which is also banned in Nuzlocke, so pretty much useless. Now we're going to fight this one trainer here, and we're going to go get our Mount Igneous encounter. The reason we're getting our Mount Igneous encounter first is because it shares a lot of similar encounters with Route 6. So, by taking an encounter in here, if you don't get, say, Sizzlipede or Charcadet with Flash Fire, you can always go back and grab an encounter with a lower chance of grabbing something bad on Route 6. So we're going to walk until we run out of Repel. And once our Repel runs out, we're not going to use another one, so that we can grab our encounter here. And as you can see, I got a Heatmore, which is not great. Now that we have our encounter, we're free to go ahead and use another Repel, and head up to this top part here. So after this trainer, we can go right here and fall onto this platform, because in here is the TM for Flame Charge. Now that that's done, we can go out of the Mount Igneous. So again, just a reminder of what you can get on Mount Igneous. All of Sizzlipede, Heatmore, and Charcadet all have Flash Fire. So if you get any of them, you can continue to delay your Route 6. And you don't have to take a encounter from the raids in the graveyard. What you can do is try to get a Ghost type, or the best thing you can do is just delay both of these encounters, because you can actually get something better later on. If you don't need to take your Route 6, you can instead take a Durant. Of course, if you miss a Flash Fire here, and then miss your Flash Fire from the graveyard, and you're confident that you can beat the Grunt right away, then it can be worth it to try to take the Grass encounter to get a Roly-Poly or Sizzlipede, seeing as Roly-Poly is the best counter for Gym 2. Seeing as I got the Flash Fire Pokemon, I am going to take this encounter right here. So as you can see, we did not get the Pokemon we wanted, so we're just going to save and rejoin. So now that we have a Durant, we are just going to quickly catch it. Another thing to keep in mind is that sometimes, before evolving a Pokemon, it can learn a move if you just delay evolving a little bit. So for example, Marill here learns Aqua Tail at level 20, and the level cap is 20. So if you level up to 20 without evolving it, it gets Aqua Tail, and then you evolve it to Azumarill. Azumarill, however, gets Aqua Tail at 21, which is just above the level cap. So you'd be running into this fight without Aqua Tail. Now if you did end up getting Durant for this fight, what you want to do is go to the overview of Durant and check its stats by clicking on this right here. Now I believe you have to be following the group to be able to see this. Now what you want to do is take all of these stats and go to this website, calc.pokemonshowdown.com. And as you can see, we have Lunatone here, and its speed is 55. So we want our Durant to outspeed their Lunatone. So we're going to give it just enough speed to outspeed it. So we're going to take the IVs that we found in Roblox and put them onto the damage calc. So as you can see, the important stats are attack and speed. We're going to plug in the attack here and give it as much attack as possible. And with our speed, we're going to give it enough that it reaches 56. Now, as you can see, you can adjust it with these right here, or you can just type in a number. Of course, the minimum number we need to get to 56 is 72. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Roblox now, and we're going to go into our bag and grab out our Swift Quills and put however many it said on the damage calc. So for me, that's 72. Then we're going to go back to the damage calc, and we're going to look for attack. Now, ideally, you have at least 14 attack, because 14 attack guarantees that you one-hit kill the Lunatone. You want to make it so that your attack stat reaches 64. If you have a plus attack nature, you're almost guaranteed to have enough. However, as you can see, I got 6 attack on my Durant. So that means I'm not going to have 64 attack, which is okay, just a little bit of risk. As you can see, it's a 6.25% chance to miss the one-hit kill. So we're going to go back and put in however many muscle quills, as it said we needed to reach 64. And then what you're going to do is take clever quills and put the rest of it into our Durant, so that we have our max special defense. And if we have our Durant at level 20, what we can see is it should reach 56. Now, since I typed in the numbers wrong, I put in the wrong number of speed points, but that's okay, because as long as it's past 56, that's all that matters. We have a lot of attack, which still isn't enough to guarantee a win, but with the rest is in special defense, which should give us enough turns to kill it if we miss the kill. Now, the next thing you want to check is its ability. If its ability is Hustle, it is not a guaranteed hit. So, what you can do is talk to this guy over here and buy either an ability patch or capsule to switch its ability. Now, whether you use Defiant or its hidden ability doesn't really matter, as long as it's not Hustle, because Hustle has a chance to miss. Of course, if you have really low attack, then you can use Hustle and just risk the 80% chance to kill. The next thing you want to do is use Cut on Durant that we got from the person earlier. So you're going to replace one of your moves with the move Cut. Now we're going to take a look at the opponent team. As you can see, it starts off with a Honedge who has Shadow Sneak. So if it sees that you can one-hit kill the Honedge while being faster, it will always go for Shadow Sneak. Now if we look over here at the AI, it says nothing about using Swords Dance, so it's not guaranteed to use Swords Dance at any point. However, it does say that Vullaby is guaranteed to use Mean Look on turn 1, outside of rare situations, such as being able to one-hit kill you. Of course, keep in mind that it has the move Knockoff, so if you have any special items you don't want to lose, and you can't 1 or 2 hit kill the Vullaby with the Berry Juice, then you need to make sure that you're not holding an item, because it will go for the knockoff, and it will get that 50% power boost. The Honedge is really easy to deal with. We got a Fire type from either our Route 5, 6, or Graveyard encounter, and our Mount Igneous encounter. So we can easily one-hit kill it with our Fire type, while taking a Shadow Sneak for not too much damage. If that Pokemon is, say, a Torkoal or somebody bulky, you can stay in and hit Vullaby with 2 more attacks, or 3 if you can survive another attack. The Vullaby here you can easily switch out because it will not attack whoever you switch into, it'll just get mean looked instead. Of course, you can 1v1 this with something like, say, your Eevee, and just use your Baby Doll Eyes to lower its attack, and making sure that you don't have an item so that it doesn't get a power boost from knockoff. Next up is Sizzlipede. Any rock type easily deals with it. The problem is there are not very many rock types you can get. A Roly-Poly here will be amazing, same with Growlithe the Hisui. Any rock coverage as well will do amazing against this thing. but most of the time you won't have that. There's also the rare Marill that you can get that turns into a Azumarill that has a very powerful Aqua Tail with huge power. Of course, those are options that not everybody's guaranteed to have, so another easy way to deal with this is to intimidate it and lock it into rollout. So if you have a Pokemon that is, for example, a Fletchling that is 4 times weak to rock, you can bait it into seeing a kill on your Pokemon with rollout. Now keep in mind, even if you pre-damage your Pokemon so that rollout one-shots you, it will always go for the highest damage move. So if Flame Wheel does more damage than rollout, it will still go for Flame Wheel instead of rollout. It has Flash Fire as well, so you can't use any Fire-type moves against it. And if you do, accidentally, you have to be very careful of Flame Wheel because it will get a 50% power bonus. And last up is Lunatone. Lunatone is a demon to deal with, especially for new players. Leftovers and solid special bulk can make it pretty tough to kill, as well as it has a 125 base special attack with max attack and a plus special attack nature. On top of going for Charge Beam occasionally, not guaranteed though, and Ancient Power to randomly 10% chance to boost all of its stats, it can easily sweep any team. So that's why we always have to make sure you have some guaranteed way to beat it. Now, a cool thing you can do to beat this Pokemon is use Diggersby. Diggersby can 2-hit kill it with a huge power double kick, but the most consistent way is Durant. So if you're struggling with this fight, go pick up a Durant from Route 6 instead of your encounter. There are other options, such as evolving Eevee into Umbreon during the nighttime. Of course, there's no way to know what time it is unless you start evolving it and you see what it evolves into. The last thing you can do is use ground types. Any ground type will resist Ancient Power and be immune to Charge Beam. So, the ground types will be taking Confusion with max special attack or special defense. You can take a couple Confusions and hit back pretty decently strong. Keep in mind Lunatone is base speed of 80, and it is not a plus speed nature, so it is possible to outspeed. As you saw earlier, it has a speed of 55, so anything faster than that will outspeed it. If you're slower, of course you have priority, such as Mach Punch from a Monferno as an example. Now before we get into this fight, the last moment to save is right at the end of this bridge here. So we're going to quickly save, and make sure you turn off fast forward here. Make sure the setting is off for when you go into this fight, because this is a fight you need to record if you're trying to get a Hall of Fame run. So we're going to start the fight. So going into this fight, the easiest strategy is to just one-hit kill this and take the Shadow Sneak with a easy fire move from one of your main fire Pokemon. After this, we have a Obby that will go for a Mean Look right away. So we're just going to switch out on it. Our electric type here from earlier should usually be able to take Obby, as long as you don't have any item on this Pokemon. As you can see, Knockoff only did 28 after Intimidate because we have no items. So now we have Sizzlipede. So now everything Sizzlipede has is easily resisted by a Azumarill, and this is a pretty hard counter. So we go for the easy Aqua Tail that will kill it, guaranteed. So now we have Lunatone. It should still see that Charge Beam is its strongest move, so we are going to switch out into our Durant for free. Keep in mind that our Durant still outspeeds it. Of course, we get lucky enough, and we easily win this fight. After that, all we're going to do is go back to where we came, back to Brimber City. Of course, you can drop down here, and just head out to the tunnel. Remember that this trainer will still attack you. Back to Route 6. And through here to Brimber City. The last thing to do once we get here is to fight the gym up there. So we're going to quickly heal and change our team out. So once you're ready, you can go into the gym just up here, up these stairs. And the way this gym puzzle works is it is basically a Roblox obby. The easiest way to get over this is to just sprint across, but of course you can always just jump across like this. With these platforms, it's easier to just walk across. And with these three, I like to just walk across as well. Of course, if you're playing on PC, while you're in the middle of the air, you can press shift to start walking faster. And with that, this is the last trainer. After that, the gym leader is right here. When you're done, you can jump in the lava, and it'll take you back to the start of the gym. Taking a look at the gym leader's team, we see that there is Drought on the Torkoal and Overheat on all three of the other Pokemon. When we're looking at what item you want to thief or covet with Eevee or one of your other Pokemon, Heavy Duty Boots is the best target, and Eviolite is only going to get a little bit of use until you get to around the third gym or a bit after that, when you can get an infinite number of Eviolites anyways. You can get a charcoal for free right before the gym fight anyways, so you don't need to take that either. Heat Rock you can get from raids, so that's also unnecessary. Torkoal is also extremely physical bulky, and it has Stealth Rock. Of course, we want to prevent or get rid of Stealth Rock after it gets set up. The easiest way to do that is to kill Torkoal in 1 or 2 hits. If you kill it in 2 hits from max HP, the Torkoal will not go for Stealth Rock. Of course, there is Taunt and Magic Bounce that you can go for as well. You can also put it to sleep and then buy yourself some time to kill the Torkoal. With Fletchinder, it only has 2 attacks, and Wing Attack is very weak, coming off of a minus attack nature and 0 attack IVs, so this thing is super easy to stall out. Numel is going to be using Overheat and Mud Bomb most of the time, so you can easily switch between a Pokemon that has Flash Fire and a Pokemon that's either Flying type or Levitate. Quilava can also be pivoted on. Extra Sensory and Energy Ball don't do that much damage, so any of your Regenerator Grass types can easily take these hits, while switching back into your Flash Fire Pokemon. Of course, with it being a Sun team and Overheat on 3 of the Pokemon, it is important to have Flash Fire. Now, for this gym, I made a complete guide with the help of Quarter on the Roria Conquest Discord. There is some general stuff, as well as some more specific stuff on here. There are a list of all of the Flash Fire Pokemon here as well, and a bunch of IV calculations. Of course, the best Pokemon for this fight is going to be Wartortle, without a doubt. And, of course, Roly-Coly plus a Regenerated Grass type can easily beat and stall out the gym. There are other things you can go for. For example, Duo with Shell Armor is also pretty useful, and Kilowattrel can pick up a one-hit KO on the Torkoal. Of course, here are all the ways that you can prevent or get rid of rocks, and a bunch of different starters that can take out the Torkoal. A lot of them struggle to kill Torkoal in Sun, but some of them can actually kill it in Sun. For example, Frogadier and Brionne can kill it in Sun. Drizzile does need some special attack, but it can also do that as well. Quaxwell with Moxie, although I think Moxie might be banned. Of course, Sleep is useful. And then there are the 3 Taunt Pokemon. Of course, if it sees it can one-hit KO your Thwackey, you need to be careful, because it will not go for rocks, and it'll just kill your Thwackey instead. Of course, I came up with the strategy to taunt and to switch out to stall out Sun on the Torkoal rather than anything else. There is also something like Water Sport, but that is not that good of a move. You can bait it into Torkoal into using a Lava Plume by using Water Sport, because it'll see a one-hit KO, but then it doesn't one-hit KO after Water Sport. Of course, Azumarill doesn't need Water Sport, and it can easily take out a lot of the Pokemon here. Of course, trying to play through hazards is not a great idea because the rest of your team that doesn't ignore it will still be taking damage. Fletchender is super easy to take out. As you can see, there's very little on here. Basically, all you do is intimidate it or just resist its flying move and stall out the overheats. Numel here is quite simple. All you gotta do is hit it with a water move, and of course you can thief the Eviolite to make it less bulky, as I do later in the video. It's also a really easy Pokemon to pivot around because Ground is a type that is easy to be immune to. All you need is a Flying type or a Levitate Pokemon. The only Levitate Pokemon at this point is the Ghastly from the graveyard. Of course, Squilava is easy, kind of, to stall out. If you have a Chespin, for example, that thing also easily stalls out both the energy balls and the extra sensories. Paired that with a Flash Fire Pokemon. Of course, with all the talk about a Flash Fire Pokemon, what if you don't have a Flash Fire Pokemon? And that will also go for if you don't have a double fire resist. Well, it can be very tough to get a deathless run without a strong fire resist or immunity. Losing Pokemon here, if you don't have a Flash Fire Pokemon, is perfectly okay and can be quite normal. Getting a Deathless run without a strong fire switch in is pretty tough, and if you can get Deathless, that's pretty impressive. Of course, huge thanks to Quarter and Renegade on Discord. Quarter basically wrote half of this whole document. Now there are two super easy free wins against this fight, Carkol and Parasect, and Wartortle. Wartortle is the simplest. If you want to beat this fight because you're struggling with it, just Rain Dance and then Water Pulse 4 times. Then with Carkol and Parasect, all you have to do is Ancient Power twice, as long as you 2-hit kill the Torkoal. Then it easily takes out Fletchender, and you just stall with these two. Of course, it doesn't have to be a Parasect, it can also be a Tangela, but the Tangela requires high IVs, or that you have leftovers from a raid. And you can also do this with Chespin with very low requirements as well. However, Parasect requires no IVs, and the nature can be a minus for def nature, and you'll be fine. Of course, Carkol does have some requirements, but it's not that much. Of course, a minus defense nature is really, really bad to have because it will force you to use a lot more points. Of course, a tier list for all the starters. I have Eevee in here because Eevee is a gift Pokemon. If you evolve into an Espeon, it jumps up several tiers. I'd say around this tier because it can get rocks up on the opponent's side if you lead with something else and switch into Espeon. Espeon only evolves in the day, and you can just look up at the sky to see if the sun is out or the moon is out. Eevee is interesting because if you steal the Eviolite, it will get a special defense boost of 1.5 times, which can actually help against the Quilava. Of course, Wartortle is by far the best Pokemon for this, and of course I have Chespin up here, which I might be overrating, and probably should be a bit lower. Since having a Flash Fire Pokemon as your starter means that you can delay your encounters, whereas Chespin requires you to have a Flash Fire Pokemon. But Chespin, like Parasect, easily stalls out this gym. You have Pokemon that can one-hit kill the or two-hit kill the Torkoal through Sun, and you have other useful Pokemon that can do damage. Although, since Moxie is banned, I am actually going to drop this a bit lower. It gets Aqua Jet, which is quite useful for the Fletchender, but it doesn't one-hit kill consistently without great IVs. There's some interesting ideas you can do with Grookey, because you can take Mud Bombs, and with Leftovers and Grassy Surge, you will be healing 12.5%. Of course, it'll also help you heal up your Flash Fire or Fire Resist Pokemon as well. There are other interesting ideas, such as Chlorophyll on Ivysaur, and there are the fire types that resist fire. Everything else in the F tier is pretty bad, and you probably don't want to bring it to this fight. Although maybe Turtwig can get some usage with its ground type moves. All of these Pokemon here being weak to fire is pretty bad, and also Croconaw being a physical water type will definitely struggle in this fight. You can get a kill outside of Sun, but by taking this as your starter, you don't have taunt from either Grookey or Monferno. Now, the strategy I came up with Sebastian for this run was to use my Monferno to taunt Torkoal, and then to repeatedly switch out to stall out Sun. My Azumarill here had very low attack, so I had to stall out Sun to get a 2-hit kill. Once I stalled out Sun, I could go for a 2-hit kill with Aqua Tail. Now, the item I had on Azumarill was the Mystic Water, which was completely unnecessary. The best item for this fight is the leftovers, which you can get from raids. And of course, if you don't have any raids left to do, you can always leave and rejoin, or try again later in the day, because the raids will respawn eventually. In this fight, what I decided what I want to use Covet on was the Eviolite, even though I was going to get some later. The way I did this was I lowered the special attack of Numel so that my Eevee could easily switch in and take the Eviolite. What this would also do was make the Numel less bulky and easier to kill. Make sure to keep in mind that you have an answer for the Quilava in the back. If you have all your Pokemon on low health by the time the Quilava comes out, then you are likely to wipe. Now, I didn't really feel like stalling out every overheat for this fight, because that would take quite a while without fast forward on. So instead, I went to tank a bunch of overheats to lower the special attack, so I could just hit back with attacks earlier on. Of course, this whole section is in 1.5 times speed, and it still took quite a while. With that, thank you for watching this video, and enjoy the rest of this fight. And of course, all relevant links will be in the description.